Hey everyone, in today's video, we're going to rebuild my MagnaPan MG 3.6R speakers. These are my dream speakers, and I purchased them just over a year ago for $2,000, and they need a rebuild. It's the fate of any MagnaPan speaker that's getting up there in age. The good news is I've already successfully rebuilt this one, and this is the one we're going to see get rebuilt in this video. I'm going to play some sine wave frequencies through this rebuilt one, and you'll hear, this is 162 Hertz, I'm just going to jump around. You know? That sounds pretty normal. That sounds like a speaker, right? Well, let me show you what this one sounds like. Now, you tell me, who would want to listen to that noise? So this is happening around 90 Hertz. This is 104. This is 84. So it's kind of a problem. So why the heck is it making that noise? That is all going to make a lot of sense as we walk through this rebuild. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, in order to do this, the first thing you're going to have to do is contact MagnaPan, and they will send you a kit with a bunch of parts. Here's the glue that they will sell you. This is a special MagnaPan proprietary blend of 30NF. And then you're going to need some supplies. You're going to need 3M Super 77 acetone, paintbrush, foam or bristle, some staples of that size, and then just some various hand tools. The kit comes with instructions, and there are far more detailed instructions on other parts of this rebuild on their website. Longtime viewers of my channel will remember that the very first video I ever purchased on this channel was a rebuild of a MagnaPan MG1. And that went okay, but there's a lot of things I did wrong. But I bring that up to say, the instructions that are now available from MagnaPan since I did that rebuild in 2020 are leagues ahead of what I was given 5 years ago. So as you can see, I've got some sawhorses with just old towels set up here. And the instructions state you might want to use 2 people for this, but I've been managing to get by just fine manipulating this speaker on my own. It's not light, but it's not exactly the heaviest thing in the world either. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put it face down like this. First thing we're going to do is get these legs off. We'll set those legs off to the side, and then we're going to start a bag collecting all of our fasteners here. Very cool. The next thing we're going to do is remove the ribbon tweeter. Now this is for a 3 series speaker, right? If you're rebuilding an MG1 and MG2, you're not going to have this, but I do, because I'm better than you. To get the ribbon tweeter out, we are going to gently pry with, this is just a bone tool for like automotive trim. You can see right there, I've got it lifting up. We'll want to go ahead and do that on both ends just to make sure we're nice and loose. Maybe a little bit in the middle too. Now before we go yanking this thing straight out, you got to remember there is a wire to be detached back here. That's what's poking out right here. So we'll pull back our cloth here a little bit, and then we can just take our fingers, gently wiggle that out. And that's one spade terminal disconnected. So this end is free. Let's go to the other end and do the same thing. And with that free, we'll just gently lift this out. Maybe a little tiny bit of a twist. And we're going to move this to a very safe place because we don't want this getting hit or falling. This ribbon tweeter works by this thin piece of metal in here. It is less than 1/1000th of an inch thick. You are not fixing it yourself. You will have to send it to MagnaPan to get it fixed. The thing I would say made me most nervous to take on this project is dealing with this whole system right here. These pieces of fabric and these stiles, like, how do you get that apart? There are detailed instructions on MagnaPan's website on how you get these apart. I was following them and I was not having very good luck, and then I read the underbag removal instructions. And that is when it all made sense to me, and I found a way that I think is pretty good and I'll show you that right now. You see, there's two pieces of fabric on this speaker. You've got the grille cover, which is underneath this, and then you've got the underbag, which is what's on top right here. This is what we actually need to remove, and the secret is we're not going to remove the grille covers at all. We're going to take that off as an assembly in a sense. I'll show you. But in order to do that, we're going to have to take out all of these Phillips head screws. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the underbag or the panel assembly right off of the stiles and grille covers. Shoot. Slipped a little bit there. I'm just going to put this down like so, carefully. Now check this out. We've got the stiles and the grille covers kind of as one assembly, but as you can see, it is not rigid at all. So what I did is I made what I'm calling some service brackets, and what these are going to do is just give me something to kind of screw these stiles to while they are apart or, you know, being serviced. So if you're going to make these, you know, you just need some scrap plywood, and then you need a drill bit to drill holes to line up with that, and that on the two middle runs here per se. So I've got this one right here. I'll put one of the screws in. This one's connected at the middle. Definitely going to take a little bit of finagling and close looking, and I won't tighten it because I need that looseness to get lined up with this one back here. And I'm still not going to tighten that until I get my second bracket in. Now I'm tightening, but not too much because I believe my plywood is not thick enough, and if I were to over tighten, I would be stripping out or you know, drilling further into these already pre-drilled holes. Now the last thing we're doing for this service bracket thing is we're going to put a tiny little screw. This is just a little 1/2-inch screw I had laying around. We're just going to put it right here on both the bottom end and the top. Wait, no, this is the bottom. I put that first one in on the top. There are detailed instructions from Magnapan describing this whole assembly. Like, this kind of folds together, pulls the grill tight. I just wasn't having luck getting it apart that way, and I think that this, if you can swing it, is a much more efficient way to get this done. Because now I can simply pick this thing up and move it out of the way, keep it in a safe spot, and then I can put my panel back on the sawhorses. Next, we'll remove this speaker connection terminal block. We'll lift it out like so. Then the first thing we're going to do is take a photo of what's going on back here so that we have it for reassembly later. Now we can take these spade terminals off since we know where they all go. And now for arguably the worst part of this whole thing. There are staples going all the way along this ribbon tweeter cavity, and every single one of those must come out. Furthermore, at the bottom of the speaker, there are 2 rows of staples, one on this first fold, and then there's a second row underneath this first row. For the first speaker, I haven't cleaned up the staples yet. I counted 128 staples. However, I did receive a tip in the comments on one of my videos that if you just leave these ones intact but take out the ribbon tweeter ones, you might be able to kind of stretch the underbag out and over the speaker just through the hole, the big gaping hole from the ribbon tweeter channel. So I might try that because it'd make this a little bit easier or save me a little bit of time. But if it doesn't work, we'll just have to remove it like the instructions say. Now you'd think there'd be some nice tool to remove these staples that would make it easy. I found just a good old whatever small flathead screwdriver is about the best tool you can get. And the way you do it is you just kind of get it under the middle and then try and twist at each corner. Kind of support it with your finger up top. And that way you can get it out in one piece. But you got to be careful you don't slip too bad with this, you know, because you don't want to put any more holes in this underbag than what is there from the factory. Now there is an adhesive backing on the channels here, so you want to make sure you get the fabric to come up without taking too much of that. I mean, this will go back together, so if it's stuck to the fabric, it's really not that big of a deal, but you know, it's cleaner to bring it up without. Right here we've got a pretty good streak starting, so hopefully we can get more of that as we go down the channel. You know, I'd argue that's more painful than taking the staples off. But we're ready for the big question here. Can this be slid off as this commenter described? Don't want to rip it, of course. That's what it feels like might happen, but I think I'm just about there. Okay, check that out. Yeah, that'll work. It's a cool little hack there. We'll just bring it under. It's now time to flip the panel over and look at what we need to be looking at. And there it is, folks. That is what we need to tackle. So this is what we're going to be removing and installing with brand new wire. So it's really interesting how these speakers work. You can see underneath the plastic layer here, like this is just a stretched piece of Mylar. There's little magnets that are very thin and long running up and down the speaker, and then these wires are sitting in between those magnets. And we're actually looking right at the problem here. And let's see if you can notice. That wire is not attached anymore because the glue is from 2002 and it's failing. So this is what's making all that buzzing sound, is these guys vibrating on the diaphragm. So that was all good and fun getting to this point. Now is where it gets a little bit more difficult. There's a lot of little things we're going to need to be careful about. Take a lot of pictures, take notes, and I'm going to walk you through that right now. Number one, read the instructions that Magnepan gives you. I read them. I'm not going to do everything exactly to the instruction. This video is not gospel. You must read the instructions if you're going to take this on yourself. So with that being said, I'll show you how I'm about to do it. Obviously, everything I'm doing is specific to the 3.6R speaker, but a lot of this is going to be very similar to any Magnepan speaker using wire instead of like a thin foil. A lot of the newer speakers use like a little foil or a ribbon for carrying the current across the magnets. This uses an actual wire. This is aluminum wire. Don't go trying to use copper magnetics wire. This needs to be aluminum. It's a special wire. I've never looked for it myself. It's in your best interest to just buy it from Magnepan, then you know it's right, and you're not gonna have to redo this because you don't wanna have to go back and redo this. Trust me, you'll understand after you see this. First, let's direct our attention to the mid wire. And we're going to call this the mid wire on the 3.6R because we've got the base, the mid, and then ribbon tweeter sits in that slot that's not in view right now. Take a look at how there's actually 2 wires going into each termination here. If you follow this one, you see it actually splits off right there and right there. Then this one has one that splits off there and right there, and they cross over right here. So we're just going to need to be aware of that as we lay down our new wire. But I'm zoomed in here because I want to mark a few things. I want to mark the area where my very first pass is going to go. My first pass is going to go right here, or maybe last, I don't know, depends on which order I do it in. And the other one is going to end up right here. So now I know where my endpoints are. Next thing I want to mark with the mid wire is you'll see the turns are actually right here. So I'm going to draw a line right here. And this is going to be where I stop when I run the new wire on this particular area right here. Looking over here at the base wire, some things to note is we have 6 double passes right here. And you can kind of follow the wire and see how that works. Like you do the one main big pass, and then you're going to come back down this way, do your 6 double passes, and then this is going to end up going back to your terminal block. But anyways, I'm going to mark, first wire and last wire so that I have an idea of when to stop when I'm doing this next. I'll do the same thing for the base wire, so I know that my turns need to be right about there. Coming back up to the top, similar situation. We know that our wires end about right here. That's how it was done from the factory, so we'll try to make that match the best we can. But it's really not that important because you can see the magnets kind of end right here. So it looks like just as long as you're above the magnet, you're going to be just fine. Coming over here, I'm going to start by undoing these terminal clamp thingies right here. This is a number 1 Phillips. It's really not that big of a deal if you strip it because you get new ones in the kit. So, lost that. Get that with a magnet later. You'll just want to discard these after you get them out. You'll notice how well they've removed the coating on the wire here for both the mid and base wires. That's going to be very important for us later. Would you look at that? This one already broke. So, pretty good thing we're in here. It's time. So at this point I've opened my window in my garage and put a fan in it to get some air movement through here because we're about to start using the acetone and later on the 30NF glue here, which comes with a safety data sheet describing its risks. This is what we're going to be using in conjunction with just some acetone that you buy at Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. So 3.6R is kind of nice. You've got like a workstation area where the ribbon tweeter used to be. And all I'm going to do is just soak these cotton balls real good in acetone and just start wiping, dissolving the original glue that is holding this wire down, or at least trying to. Obviously we just saw it's not doing a very good job anymore, and there's that glue coming off. I found that cotton balls work the best. They seem to do a really good job of holding the acetone that's wanting to evaporate. If you use anything else like a paper towel or something, or just dump it straight on, it's just going to evaporate really quickly, so you don't want to be doing that too much. That should be plenty loose. Let's go ahead and start pulling this. And if you break it, not a big deal. It does break very easily. Now right here at this point, we're just going to remove the wire, but we're not going to undo any of this. We're not going to get the wire underneath it. What we'll do when we actually finish this is we'll just lay our new wire right on top of these. Now that I've switched the camera angle for added excitement, let's go do the exact same thing to the base wire. We're just going to pick a place to start, and we're going to get it wet with the acetone. Let that acetone do some dissolving work for us, and then we'll be able to pull these wires off of the diaphragm safely. You don't want to damage this diaphragm. This diaphragm is everything. And of course, before we remove the base wire, we must remove the tie downs that we soaked with acetone. Number 1 Phillips will do you just fine, and they will be glued on there a little bit, so you gotta be pretty careful with removing these. I might come back to that with the loose wire. Having the loose wire might give us the convincing we need. But I will definitely put some more acetone down around these because they are glued. And you will re-glue these to the diaphragm when you put the new wire on. I did get the other 2 off camera, so let's start down here by pulling back our wire carefully. It looks like this one goes underneath this one, so I'm going to start with this one instead, so then when I get back, it's going to come out from above. And the base wire, you're going to want to be a lot more careful than you were with the mid wire, because, you know, improper removal of this has actual potential to damage your diaphragm. And I'm feeling a little stiff right there, so I'm going to add some more acetone. Let's see if that helped my case any. Yep, that comes off a lot easier. I'm not pulling hard at all. And you take all this, and you're all tangled up in it. You're gonna trip if you try walking. Ball it up and throw it away. You will not use this. And now it's the most boring part of this all, which is you gotta clean this very, very well. This thing needs to be squeaky clean. No glue, no residue left over at all. So cue the time lapse. I'm just gonna do this until there's no more junk and it's perfectly clean. Next, the instructions say if you want a superior clean, use a cloth with 50% water and 50% IPA. I'm just going to use this 70% and hope that that extra 20% concentration doesn't hurt anything. Didn't hurt the other one, so I'll just go at it. All right, we're looking really nice here. We can see clearly through the clear Mylar, and there's no glue residue left over. That last wipe with the isopropyl alcohol really cleaned this up. The acetone's always gonna leave like a residue on there. So, I mean, look at that. You can see the mirror of the Pioneer SA7100 up there. And now this is the point where it's easiest, in my opinion, to understand how these speakers work. So, you know, you've got your crossover right here. The sound comes in through these wires, and you plug your speaker into your amplifier through you know, something over there. And you saw that the wires that get glued to this diaphragm go right here. So for the mid wires, those gray stripes we've got there are actually just really long skinny magnets. And you're running a wire in between those magnets, creating a magnetic field that makes the wire vibrate when there is alternating current passed through it, just like a coil speaker. I think most people know how a coil speaker works. You know, you've got that coil of wire inside of a magnet. Well, what if you were to just unwind that coil, make the magnet really long and skinny, and then just put the wire in between each of these magnets, and there's your magnetic field. So here's for the base wire. The magnets are a lot thicker, and you can see they've got on the Mylar, it's marked with kind of these black dotted lines. Those are the lines you're going to follow when you're putting the wire on the speaker, which we're getting geared up to do here. But before we do that, we need to take care of some repairs. And you can already see it. I think it's right there. There is a tear in the diaphragm right here. And that is okay. If you see something like that, as long as it's not like huge or like a gigantic gouge, your speaker's probably going to be okay. I mean, there's already holes in it for the tie downs, so it's really not a big deal. Don't worry about it. It's very easy to fix it too. Another way you can tell if you've got a pinhole or a tear is you see the residue underneath there from the acetone. As you wipe the glue off with the acetone, you'll see it getting underneath, getting all wet down there, and that's how you know you have a pinhole or a tear. So how do you fix it? Well, it says use a high quality cellophane tape. I think the old instructions said just good old 3M Scotch tape was fine, but if I've got this higher end stuff here for packaging, I'll just rip myself off a bigger piece. I'm going to cut it to size. Okay, this is the piece I want. It's clean enough. We're just going to put it right there. Make sure we've got it adhered, and that's it. That's all you do. Now, how did that tear get there? Well, it was very interesting that it's there because there were two wires going through that, so it probably was not the previous owner's handling of the speaker. Also, keep in mind that this is the front of the speaker, so you'd have to go through all of that grille cover and underbag to get a puncture or tear in here. So, probably wasn't that. I actually think I did it when I was taking the wires off. And I think I didn't have enough acetone right there, because I noticed it the minute the wire right there came off. I didn't use enough acetone getting this wire off, so just make sure you do that, folks. Do not pull hard on the wire. So the diaphragm's nice and clean. We're going to replace our wire connection terminal blocks here. One screw here and one screw here, and these might be glued down a little bit, so, and yep, they are. I'm going to take a putty knife and a rubber mallet and just very lightly get under there and finish that off. You saw it didn't take much, but it was important that we didn't overdo that. Here's our new one. I'll just keep this one plugged in for now. Then one by one, just take these spade terminals and move them over to the new one. And you may have noticed I already accidentally erased my Sharpie marks here from cleaning with the acetone. That's okay, because I took pictures. So I'm going to be able to figure this out. So I see we've got 3 thick magnets in this photo. Our first run of the mid wire is going to go there. And then a good rule of thumb for these things, for when you start over here, the wire is always going to be between 2 magnets. So this will be the first pass. I don't need to mark that one because I'm going to know that when I see it. So I guess that kind of goes without saying. I prefer to start with the thin gauge mid or treble wire versus the base wire. So we'll get this ready to go. And it's about to get real crazy in here. We've got our 2 adhesives here. We've got the 3M Super 77 and the Magnapan 3M30 NF. This is what's actually going to be our finishing adhesive right here. This is what we're going to use to start. What the Super 77 is going to do is it's going to create like a sticky base layer so you can tack the wire to the diaphragm so it stays in place and then you'll be ready to apply this with a paintbrush. So what I like to do is just kind of block off the base section with some cardboard or whatever. So that way when I'm using the spray can, I know I'm gonna get it only where I wanna get it. Let's just make sure this is clear. Looks like it is. Might need to clean that off a little bit. I saw some dripping. Let's try that again. Much better. It's a nice, clean spray right there. That's what you'll want. So it's at this point in my first video where I did the worst thing, which is apply too much glue. The more glue you put on this diaphragm, the more mass you add to it, and the more energy it's gonna take to vibrate this mass, which means your speaker's not gonna be as loud, it's not gonna be balanced like it was from the factory. They put the right amount of glue on. It's a very thin layer of glue, especially with the mid and treble wires. So I will be adding just one light pass of the Super 77, and when it comes to the 30NF, I'm gonna put less of that also, just the smallest amount I can. It takes very little to keep the mid wire attached to the diaphragm, so you don't need much glue at all. And plus, you're gonna want that to be able to vibrate as freely as possible because those are higher frequencies. They take, you know, I guess less energy to move the diaphragm, whereas the base wire, you're gonna need more glue, but that's okay because it's those lower frequencies. I'm gonna get my Super 77, do a practice, get it going, and we'll just go for this first pass here. That's what I'm doing. I didn't get much over there. I'll do one more pass on that end. In fact, this actually might be too much glue. Let's see, if you're gonna do this, now's the time because the Super 77, yeah, I think I used too much glue there. So I'm gonna start over, actually. I did okay up here, but down there that was too heavy. All right, got that cleaned off again with the acetone. And I'm gonna put this right here also to protect our speaker terminals. We do not want glue getting on those. All right, here I go. That should be okay to start. Still not terribly happy with my volume. Let's see. Need to get a little bit on that side. Okay, so at this point we are to wait 5 to 12 minutes for the Super 77 to become the ideal tackiness. When it's first sprayed, it's very liquidy. You don't really want that. You want it to be tacky. All right, it's been a few minutes, so I'm gonna get started with laying the first few runs of the mid-wire. You're gonna wanna give yourself a good 12 inches of extra wire, so like maybe to the base of the speaker right here. And that's important because, watch this. It's that weak, it's that easy to break this wire. You don't have to try very hard. So keep that in mind as you're putting this down, of course, because you gotta be careful. And don't worry about leaving too much. There is more than enough wire on this spool to get this done. So what I'm doing is I'm lining this right up with the line here. And I'm just going to lightly drag my finger across so that the wire gets adhered to the diaphragm. This first pass is a little unique because you're never going to get the wire to go, you know, underneath these magnets here. So at this part, we're just going to lay right on top of the magnets, and that's perfectly fine. And we'll just make sure we get this real good with the 30NF when that time comes. So we're going to do our first turn here. And this is where I had the line for where we're going to put our turns. So I'll just kind of take my finger, pull this until we're at about right there, I guess. And this next pass is going to run right along the magnet here. So this is a really odd first pass here, but it gets much easier after this one, trust me. Okay, so I'm through that one, and I'm just looking straight down at the lines formed on the diaphragm between the magnets. That's the path where I'm gonna lay my wire. And then I know my Sharpie mark right here. This is where I'm gonna make my turn. So let's turn right there. Make sure we're still tacky. Right, is the wire sticking? Looks like it is, so that's what we want. We just want that nice little tack. So we're gonna keep going. So I know based on my photo, I'm gonna do 2 more turns right here, and then I'm gonna end that run before starting the next one. So let's wrap it up here. Get a close-up of that. Right here you can see how bad of a job I did lining up my first set of turns with that Sharpie mark. But you know, we've got our 2 sets right here, plenty of wire, and it was tough to show it, you know, because I don't have a camera strapped to my head, but this is more or less what you're doing. You're just looking straight down. And you just kind of do it in sections. You probably saw me in the time lapse doing it. Just kind of maybe 2 or 3 feet at a time. Running my finger across the wires, tacking them down, and then moving on to the next 2 or 3 feet, and then doing the turn with my finger over here. So we'll get this with the 30 NF in a minute. Now's a good time to do the base wire because we do need to let the Super 77 cure for some amount of time before we apply the 30 NF. All right, so I've got the cardboard switched, and here is the heavier wire. As you can see, it is, you know, it actually kind of takes a form, which is going to be a pain in the ass for us in a minute here. Of course, we got to do Super 77 first. We're going to be a little less careful with the Super 77 since it is the base wire. It appears that from the factory they started with the double passes, which is interesting based on how the wires overlapped, but I'm going to start with the outer pass, make my way across, and then do my double passes at the end, because the instructions state you need to spray the already laid single pass wires with Super 77 that you're about to do a double pass on. That'll make sense in a minute here. I'm going to start with this section of the diaphragm, get that coated in Super 77. Let's see. Not bad. I'll just leave that like so, and then once I make my way over here, then I'll do a new spray of the Super 77 just to keep the glue at a minimum. You know, it's going to take some time to make our way up this. We'll give this 5 minutes. All right, I got impatient. I started off camera. This will be just enough wire. I probably should have given myself a little bit more since this is this very end piece here. But anyways, it's the same as what we were doing earlier. This one's harder. I don't like doing the base wire as much as the mid wire. Mid wire is a lot easier. Here, we're going to do our first turn with the base wire. And one other thing I want to note, I sprayed a little bit of extra Super 77 up here because this is our critical area per se, right? This is where the failures happen on these, so we want to make sure we've got plenty of glue in this area so that we minimize our chances of that failure in the future. I might not have enough Super 77 on here. I'm putting this wire on. It is not wanting to stay. And that is a problem. We don't want any of that if we can help it. I want to show you what's already happening. I don't think I used enough Super 77 because we've already got one wire coming up, and I can try to get it to stick again. But when I do that, the wires around it want to come up also. We don't want any space underneath this wire, right? But yeah, like, see, so this isn't gonna work. There, it's all popping up when I do that, so I might pull this wire back and just start over because Clearly we don't have enough adhesive on here to get the tack. See if I push somewhere else, it'll probably just pop right back up. Yep, there you go. So, sucks, but that's just kind of how this goes. And now is the time to correct these mistakes. You do not want to correct them later. You know what, I didn't like how much length I left myself with that first pass, so yeah, I am going to just completely start this one over. There should be enough wire here. I think they give you enough to account for your mistakes. One thing I'm doing while I'm waiting for that to dry is I'm looking to see, are there any sections of wire where it has come up and it's not fully adhered to the diaphragm? And I'm seeing plenty of those. So I'm just taking my finger and doing what I can to push those down and get them to stick. Let's try to show you some of that up close. I see a little bit right there. I'll just take the back of my fingernail, push that down a little bit, make that gap go away. There's one back there. I'll get it. And then even up here, see where I just did my runs, my bends? These got to get pushed down also. They really don't want to be sticking. There's a real bad one right there. See if back of my fingernail helps that. Definitely helps it quite a bit. And all these guys are going to need extra convincing before the 30 NF. So that's just kind of what I'm doing. Of course, we've got a few more passes to go. What is that, like 6? And then we'll come back under here, and we'll start doing our double passes. All right, so we're ready to start our 6 double passes. So based on my picture, we're gonna come down along the diaphragm and we're gonna start at pass number 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That one. And that is where I will begin my double turns, or double passes. Looks like I did something like that. That's right. Okay, look at that. Ready to go? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Let's do our first pass here so we can get the glue on. Well, that's pretty interesting right there. You see, just spraying it with the fresh Super 77 kind of freed up some of the glue that was under there. There's like a liquid that evaporates in the glue. So we're gonna have to stick this one back down. I'm glad I was recording there. Glad I didn't move the camera. That was pretty cool. But yeah, gotta wait a few minutes. Let's try and put that back, huh? This wire is misbehaving. The glue is not quite ready per se, but it's working. All right, I think I'm just gonna leave the camera there and you'll just see me when I come back. And there you go, folks. Give this some length, give it a snip, and look, plenty of wire to spare. So there you have it. The wires are laid and they are tacked, mostly. I'm gonna do a final kind of quality check on the base wire. There's probably gonna be little areas that are kind of popping up. Yeah, I can already see one right there. I'll have to go back and get that right. And you know, various other little things. I think the instructions say to do 30 NF next, but they also say to let the Super 77 dry for at least 2 hours. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I think now's a good time to take care of the terminations here. So if we look back at our photo, we see that we need to do it like this, and it's extremely important that we follow this exactly how the original speaker was, because if you get this wrong, you're going to mess up the polarity on the speaker, and nobody wants that. One very small detail I noticed in the photo is there was a little piece of tape right here, and yeah, I did remove that when I was doing this. We're just going to put that piece of tape back, and that's going to be our crossing point for this wire. It's probably just an extra little precaution because we don't, even though this wire is coated, we don't really want it to be coming into contact with that and creating a short. That would be not ideal. I should have a little bit of 77 here. Move the phone out of the way. That'll help us tack. I guess we'll get some over here as well. So we're gonna need that over here. There. That'll be good for us. And the reason we're kind of coiling these up in a way, it's basically an insurance policy. Like I showed you earlier, these wires are very thin and they break very easily. And we want to have extra so that if we happen to mess up something over here, we're going to be okay. Let's get these guys together now. Okay, so then we'll do something similar with these wires. So that's how these ones will get terminated eventually. Now let's go over to the other side, take note. And the one on the far end is going to be the one that goes on this one, and then this one's going to go on that one. We won't worry about tacking over here too much because it's going to be a lot of movement because we're about to sand the wires. I would say this is probably my least favorite part of this whole procedure, but you know, it's not going to work too well if you don't do it. And in this situation, the base wires are much easier. So this is just some, I think, yeah, 400 grit sandpaper. And all I'm going to do is lightly sand the ends here, such that we expose the bare aluminum conductor. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? But what's going on the other side? It's still got coating on it, so this is what makes this part so painful. Just give it a good inspection, make sure you've got all sides taken care of. And now would be a fairly opportune time to check the resistance of your wire, because it'd be a shame to go any further and see that you don't have any resistance. That would mean you did something wrong. And this doesn't surprise me at all. You know, we got about 4.2. That's about what we had on my other one, which is great. I was not worried about the base wire. The base wire having continuity, that's easy. It's these guys over here that once I get them sanded down, I'm really gonna wanna know what's going on with those wires. Anyways, where were we? I'm gonna take this little tiny screwdriver and I'm gonna use it as something to bend this about. What that's gonna do is it's gonna create a nice thing for our clamp down thingy to grab it with. Now that I've got my bend, I might just do that 2 more times. Parts that came with the kit. These are crazy tiny, and they're gonna kind of self-tap right into that hole there. So the goal, based on what I saw with what was originally here, is you want to have a little bit of wire sticking out the bottom here, and then both wires kind of sticking out the top. So it looks like I've barely made this one long enough, and we already see how easy it is to lose track of that. This is my very small number 1 Phillips. It fits in perfectly. You'll know when it's tight. You'll know when it's tight. Now let's do that again for the other wire. Okay, let's finish tacking our base wire. Now for this side, this is going to be a pain. Try out that multimeter on this one. Should get about 5 over here. Yep, about 5. That's what we want. Good stuff. Next thing you want to do is look at your tie downs and note this pattern that's on here. You've got 2 straights and then kind of a diamond looking thing here. And this is a good thing to do during the tacking. You want to make sure that this thing is going to set on here just right. I took care of this right around the time I finished the Super 77 while it was still a little more tacky, a little bit more easy to work with. These ones, especially with the double runs, you really want to make sure they are ready for these guys. I had to take my microphone off briefly and let it charge, so maybe I sound better now. Maybe you also hear the fan on high. This is the can from the first speaker. They send you a can with each kit per se. I don't think I'll be using this one. This should be plenty for finishing my second speaker. And then I've got this on hand for the MG2As I've got laying around. So that's a future video. It's time to shake well and break out the paintbrush. I recommend using a foam paintbrush for this so you can just throw it away. But this is just what I had laying around. I didn't prepare as well as I could have. All right, folks, it's time for the 30NF. All right, so I'll open this up if possible. It might be sealed shut from the last time. That was tough to open, but I got it. That's probably why they send you 2 cans. I'll put gloves on. I don't think you're supposed to touch this stuff. I've used this stuff a few times now. It really doesn't bother me that much, but it does certainly have a bit of an odor to it. So I'm gonna start here at the mid-wire. Yeah, this is a 2-inch brush. It's like barely too big. So like I was saying, with the mid-wire, you want like barely anything for your mid-wire. So I'm going to be applying the smallest, lightest coat I possibly can on the mid-wire. And of course right here I'm making sure to make my strokes go that way, so I don't accidentally kind of yank one of those wires loose. And making our way downtown slowly here. Very light coat. You don't need much at all on the mid-wire. Right here on these magnets, we're gonna put a bit of a heavy coat on here because we do want to make sure that the wire in this area stays pretty solidly in place. And we weren't able to get this one to tack super well on this side of the magnet, so we're going to be mindful of that by applying a heavier coat of glue right here. While we're in this vicinity, Magnapan recommends you give a little bit extra up here where your bend is. So definitely want to do that. Coming down to this end, we're going to want to put a bit all over our runs here for the wires as they make their way to the terminations. And just kind of make sure you get these all good, but don't put any 30 NF on the actual terminal blocks. That's not what you're supposed to do. I don't know if I remembered to say this in the beginning of the video. The reason that Magnapan has their own proprietary formula of 30 NF is that it has a UV protectant in it. So it's a little bit more resistant to UV rays from the sun, because, you know, people will put these speakers in their house, and most people have windows in their house. That kind of stuff will just accelerate the failure of your Magnapan speakers more quickly. So I forget what year they said, I think it was the 2000s, they made the switch to this proprietary blend of 30 NF. So the more you know. And of course, right there, I'm just putting my heavier coat there initially. Probably come back and do a second coat on the bottom here to help with that. I'm gonna get these tie downs taken care of now before I coat the rest of the speaker. So I'll just put a little bit under there. I'll set that on here. So, yep, I'm there. Just tuck, I felt that. And then this screw is going to be real fun to line up. Definitely want to be careful with these tie downs. You could really make some big mistakes with these if you're not careful. I think that'd probably be the most tragic thing to strip. If you were to strip anything on here. Oh God, now that I said it, is it going to happen? It just might, who knows. I think I just stripped that one, but the tie down is solidly in there, and there's a good chance that this screw picked up some 30 NF when it went in, and I also can't screw the screw out, so that's not good, but I think it'll be okay. All right, we're just gonna pretend that never happened. Okay, it's time to finish it off. Time to let this dry overnight, and we'll come back to it in the morning. All right, it is the next morning and all the glue is cured. It is dry. And it's looking pretty good. You know, it's looking a little sloppy on the base panel in some places. Like, as I use my finger to kind of move the wire along and press it down, I got a bit of clumping on the Super 77. But that's not the end of the world. Certainly not ideal. It wouldn't come out of the factory like this, but you know, it is what it is. Got that nice thin layer on the mid wire, and I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Honestly, I think I did the other speaker a little bit better, but you'll never get to see because I am not taking that apart. So very briefly, I want to talk about Magnapan's X program, which is something that's come up in the last few years, this decade. For the longest time, Magnapan has been of the philosophy of, you know, we're going to give you the most affordable crossover to keep the speaker cost as low as possible, and that's what you're going to get. And they kind of left it on the consumer to experiment as they want, or the aftermarket. Recently, they have decided to start a program where they will give you the best possible crossover, and they will like tune individual components to your speaker. And I actually called them and talked to them about doing this video. Like, they know I'm doing this video. And I asked the service manager, Mick, would you be interested in selling me the components to Xify my 3.6Rs? He said that what goes into making a speaker, an X Magnapan speaker, is a lot, and to do that, like, it needs to go to the factory, it needs to go into their test setup, and they need to do exactly what is needed to, you know, make this the best speaker possible. So I heard that, and then I thought about myself as a user of this speaker, and you know, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I am not a top-end audiophile per se. I do not have the money or the desire, frankly, to buy a $10,000 power amplifier, you know, $20,000 turntable, all that stuff. You know, that stuff is great. I've heard systems like that. It's really cool, but it's not for me. So when you look at an X upgrade, I'm not saying you need a $10,000 power amplifier alone. I'm just saying in order to extract the largest benefit from the cost of an X upgrade, which is in the thousands of dollars, by the way, it's very expensive. You're gonna need the expensive components to go with that. So part of this video I considered being a crossover upgrade. I'm just not doing that in this video. I'm leaving it stock and leaving it alone. So that's that. Let's get this underbag put back on. See if we can get this back on here. I don't know how that's gonna go. Well, that went fairly smoothly, actually. This is not a Magnapan approved method, but if you've got one of these speakers with the ribbon tweeters and you can swing this, I'd recommend it. Because I don't have to touch any of this, and it is exactly how it was from the factory. And all my holes lined up, because that's the most important thing really here is we're getting the fabric put back in place so we can line up these holes so that the screws go through. We can get the stiles put back on here. So now we're going to staple this back in place. I'm using this style of staple, and this is just a staple gun. You can see where the old staples were, like that little line right there, and then you can see the holes where the staples went into the actual panel here. So what I do is I just line that up pretty close. There we go. And I didn't get it exactly where the old staple was, but you know, it's close. And I can come over here. And there's that. If you line the fabric up with where the original staples were, then all the holes will line up like this one. And there's one over here that really needs to be brought in. Yep. So yeah, it's just making sure you get your fabric lined up with your holes. Next, I'll put this thing back on. I will refer to the photo I took And that way I won't put it on wrong, in theory. I think I'm going to move on to the stiles and grill cover, so I'll just put this back on the ground like I had it. Bring this back in, and I'll remove all my service screws and whatnot. You'll take this moment to make sure there's nothing too big inside of here, because you're not going to be able to get it out. Then we're going to really carefully start a few screws. I'm going to try to start right here. There. I feel it grabbing now. Let's get that one a little bit. We're not going to tighten it though. I'll come over to this end. I'll get this one. Now I'm going to get one of these side ones. Hopefully it just lines right up. You can kind of see what's happening right here is this stile is just like not supported. So you gotta bring it up for your first screw and kind of line it up and see if it bites. It's out of frame, but I just got that one to start. So now I can probably easily get this one to start. Yep, lined right up. Okay, I've basically got this more or less steady. So now let's go ahead and just add the rest of the screws. Now it's time to put the ribbon tweeter back. We're going to connect this spade terminal and this spade terminal. And we're going to carefully set this back in. The fabric is going to want to get caught underneath this spade terminal, so you'll want to just take that bone tool again or whatever and do your best to kind of move that back up over the connection. There we go. And getting the first screw is going to be, oh yeah, I got it lined up pretty good there. Okay, then we'll just go ahead and do this for the rest. All right, let's see if it falls apart. Nope. All done. All right, here's the moment of truth. And yes, the amp I was using before sold by the time I was able to finish the video. So I can hear the bass. So here's that 80 hertz. To 104 hertz. There is no buzzing. That's good stuff. Okay, let's play everybody's favorite song. And there it is. So 3.6R is kind of nice because you can do a little test to make sure you did everything right. So this right here is your ribbon tweeter. I'll just unplug that, and I'm assuming you hear that difference. I'm going to unplug the bass panel, and I still hear music, which means my mid panel is working, and there's no bass. So, there it is. Successful rebuild. There you have it, folks. Two rebuilt MG 3.6Rs. I hope this video was informative and enjoyable. I certainly had a good time rebuilding these, and I'm very excited to move them back into my main system where I can enjoy them as thoroughly as I can with the limited equipment that I have. You know, they always say you need at least like 300 or 400 watts to run these things. I've got like 150 in my space, but it works pretty well for me. I'm happy with that for now. I'll just need to wait and see if some very broken 400 watt per channel amplifier shows up someday. So that'll be in the back of my mind. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my subscribers, and thank you to my members who get early access to videos just like this one. All right, I will see you in the next one. I don't remember if I told the story in the video where I announced that I had just purchased these, but why are these my dream speakers? Well, it goes back to when I was in high school. A friend of mine had found a Craigslist ad for some amplifier thing. I don't even remember what it was. So we're like 16 years old at the time. We had just learned to drive. We're going to some guy's house like 5 towns away, and we get to talking to him, and he invites us to his basement, which is, you know, just lovely. He wants to show us his system, and in his basement he has Magnepans, and I had never seen or heard of Magnepans before. If I recall correctly, I think they were MG2s, because I remember the 2 styles going down the middle, and I remember that they were taller than me. He had these speakers hooked up to Kenwood Supreme separates, and he turned on some song. I don't even know what song it was. And that is now a core memory for me. It's the first time I ever heard a Magnepan's speaker. I was blown away. I could not believe what I was hearing. So it was a bit of a dream coming true when I bought my first broken MG1s, but I knew that with these ribbon tweeters, there was a whole other world of possibility. So I searched for some 3 series speakers with the ribbon tweeters, found these for, you know, $2,000 is a lot of money, but in the region I'm in, supply is low. You know, all it takes is the right buyer in many situations, and that guy found the right buyer. So that's why we're here. Just some random guy on Craigslist showed me his Magnepans when I was in high school. So thought you might like that story. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next one.